November 1917, the Argonne Forest. An American soldier crouches in a muddy trench, gripping a rifle that shouldn't exist in his hands. This isn't the legendary Springfield M1903, not the rifle plastered across recruitment posters from New York to California, not the weapon every American boy dreamed of carrying into battle. This is something else entirely, heavier, stronger, British-designed, American-made, and about to rewrite everything you thought you knew about World War I. The rifle in his hands cost just $28 to manufacture. It holds 6 rounds instead of 5, and in the next 48 hours, that single extra bullet will mean the difference between survival and a shallow grave in French soil. This is the M1917 Enfield, the rifle that armed 3 out of every 4 American soldiers in the Great War, the weapon that Sergeant Alvin York used to become America's most decorated hero. The gun that outshot, outlasted, and outperformed the famous Springfield in every measurable way. Yet somehow, history forgot it existed. While the Springfield M1903 earned legendary status in museums and textbooks, the M1917 quietly won the war. Over 2 million produced compared to barely 300,000 Springfields. Stronger action, better sights, more reliable under the worst conditions imaginable. All for half the price. The question isn't why the M1917 existed. The question is why you've never heard of it. This is the story of America's accidental war winner. The $28 rifle that outfought every Springfield ever issued, the substitute that became the backbone. The weapon that saved American forces when the official rifle failed to arrive. And it starts with a crisis nobody saw coming. April 6, 1917. America declares war on Germany. President Wilson promises to send 2 million soldiers to France. The problem? Those soldiers need rifles. The United States Army owns exactly 600,000 Springfield M1903 rifles. Simple math says that's nowhere near enough. The War Department immediately orders Springfield Armory to increase production. Maximum capacity. Around-the-clock shifts. Push every machine to its absolute limit. The result? 1,000 rifles per week. 1,000. The Army needs 100,000. Every single week. For months. The numbers don't just fail to add up. They reveal a catastrophic crisis. American soldiers are boarding ships to France faster than rifles can be manufactured. Training camps across the country resort to drilling recruits with broomsticks, wooden mock-ups, anything that vaguely resembles a firearm. Camp Wadsworth in South Carolina receives 15,000 new recruits in June 1917. They have 400 actual rifles to share between them. Men rotate through qualification courses, passing the same weapons from soldier to soldier, hour after hour. This isn't training. This is theater. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking. German U-boats hunt the Atlantic. The Western Front devours Allied soldiers by the tens of thousands. America promised an army. America needs to deliver an armed army. The Springfield Armory cannot possibly meet demand. Building new factories would take 2 years minimum. Training new workers another 6 months. Designing new tooling and machinery, add another year. America doesn't have that kind of time. Then someone in the War Department remembers something crucial. 3 years earlier, Britain had contracted American factories to produce rifles, not American rifles, British rifles. The pattern 1914 Enfield. Winchester in New Haven, Connecticut. Remington in Ilion, New York. Eddystone in Pennsylvania. 3 massive facilities specifically tooled to manufacture British military rifles. Trained workers, proven machinery, quality control systems already established. These factories had pumped out hundreds of thousands of pattern 1914 Enfields for the British Empire. Then in early 1917, those contracts ended. Britain had enough rifles. The factories went quiet. Workers waited for new contracts. Machinery sat idle. All that capability, all that expertise, just waiting. The solution hits like lightning. Why retool these factories for the complex Springfield M1903 when they already know how to build the British Enfield? The pattern, 1914, was designed for the British 303 cartridge. America uses the 30-06 round. But the actions, nearly identical. The engineering, proven. The manufacturing process, already perfected. The Army Ordnance Department makes the call. modify the British pattern 1914 design to accept American 30-06 ammunition, keep everything else the same, the stronger receiver, the 6-round magazine, the aperture sight system. Call it the United States rifle, caliber 30, model of 1917. The M1917 Enfield is born, not from careful planning, not from years of research and development, from pure desperate necessity. 3 factories gear up immediately: Winchester, Remington, Eddystone. Workers return to assembly lines they already know, machinery that already works, processes already proven. The only change? The chamber dimensions and barrel specifications for the 30-06 cartridge. By August 1917, the first M1917 rifles roll off production lines. Cost to manufacture? $28. The Springfield M1903 costs over $50 per unit, thanks to tighter tolerances and more complex machining. The M1917 uses simpler cuts, wider tolerances that still exceed every combat requirement, existing tooling from the British contracts, manufacturing efficiency on a scale America has never seen. September 1917. The first shipments of M1917 Enfields arrive at training camps. Sergeants who spent years mastering the Springfield now hold a rifle they've never seen before. It's heavier. The sights look different. The magazine holds an extra round. Everything feels wrong. Until they start shooting. The first thing every soldier notices is the weight. 9 pounds 9 ounces, a full pound heavier than the Springfield M1903. Drill instructors hear the same complaint 1,000 times. This thing feels like a fence post. It's too heavy. I can't march with this all day. The complaints last exactly 1 week, because when those soldiers hit the rifle range, physics takes over. That extra pound, it absorbs recoil like nothing they've ever experienced. The Springfield jumps with every shot. Muzzle rises, sight picture disrupted. The M1917 stays on target. Soldiers fire follow-up shots faster, more accurately. The fence post suddenly makes sense. Then they discover the magazine capacity. 6 rounds instead of 5. 1 extra bullet doesn't sound like much, until you're in a trench and German stormtroopers are crossing 30 yards of no man's land in under 10 seconds. That 6th round is the difference between reloading under pressure or putting one more enemy down before they reach your position. Combat mathematics written in lead and desperation. The sight system causes the biggest adjustment. The Springfield uses a ladder sight, traditional, adjustable for range with multiple apertures. Every marksman in America trained on that system for decades. The M1917 has something different. A rear aperture peep sight, protected by 2 sturdy ears on either side, a simple sliding scale for range adjustment. Nothing fancy, nothing complex, just fast. Instructors hate it at first. This isn't how we teach marksmanship. This isn't proper technique. The recruits, they adapt in days. Acquiring targets through that aperture proves faster than lining up the ladder sight. In low light conditions, pre-dawn attacks, the difference become. It's massive. Young soldiers with fresh eyes understand what old sergeants resist. The simpler system works better under combat stress. October 1917. Production numbers start rolling in. Winchester produces 10,000 rifles in the first full month. Remington hits 12,000. Eddystone, the largest facility, cranks out 15,000. By November, those numbers double, then triple. The 3 factories combined produce more rifles in a single month than Springfield Armory manufactures in 6. January 1918. Monthly production exceeds 150,000 M1917 and rifle every 90 seconds. Workers live in companies built specifically for war continuously, a river of steel and walnut flowing toward France. The Springfield M1903 production, still stuck at around 5,000 per month. Beautiful rifles, precisely machined, exactly what America wanted. In quantities that mean absolutely nothing when you need to arm 2 million soldiers. Training camps across America face reality. Camp Funston in Kansas receives 25,000 M1917s and 2,000 Springfields. Camp Gordon in Georgia, 18,000 Enfields, 1,500 Springfields. Camp Lee in Virginia, 22,000 Enfields, barely 1,000 Springfields. The pattern repeats at every installation. 90% M1917s, maybe 10% Springfields if they're lucky. Drill instructors rewrite training manuals on the fly. The manual says Springfield, but your rifle is an Enfield. The principles are the same. Just remember you have 6 rounds instead of 5. Don't lose that advantage. Soldiers shipping to France carry overwhelmingly M1917 Enfields. The docks at New York Harbor tell the story. Crate after crate stamped Winchester, Remington, Eddystone, occasionally a small shipment marked Springfield Armory. The official United States service rifle has become the minority. Weapon. The substitute is now the standard. February 1918. American troops begin arriving in France in massive numbers. The French and British allies expect to see Springfield rifles. American propaganda films showed Springfields. Recruitment posters featured Springfields. Instead, they see Enfields. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. The American Expeditionary Force is armed with a rifle that technically shouldn't exist. A British design modified for American ammunition, produced by civilian factories, carried by doughboys who never questioned where it came from. They only cared about one thing. Does it work when someone's trying to kill you? They're about to find out. October 8, 1918. The Argonne Forest. Corporal Alvin York and 16 other soldiers advance through dense woodland behind German lines. Their mission: silence enemy machine gun nests wreaking havoc on American forces. York carries an M1917 Enfield manufactured by Eddystone. Serial number documented in military records. Not a Springfield, an Enfield. The rifle history would later get wrong. The patrol stumbles directly into a German position. Machine guns open fire immediately. Half of York's squad goes down in the first 30 seconds. The survivors hit the ground. Return fire erupts. York finds himself on a small hill with a clear view of German soldiers attempting to flank their position. 25 Germans charging uphill. York starts shooting. The M1917 barks 6 times. 6 Germans fall. He reloads with a 5-round stripper clip. The rifle's action is smooth. Bolt cycles without hesitation. 5 more shots. 5 more targets down. Another reload. The aperture sight system proves its worth. York acquires targets faster than thought. The protected sight ears mean no worries about bumping the adjustment. Point, breath, squeeze. The fundamentals drilled into him at Camp Gordon. The rifle does Eve. Writhing else. German soldiers keep coming. York keeps shooting. The stronger M1917 action absorbs punishment. The heavier barrel maintains accuracy despite rapid fire. That extra pound of weight everyone complained about? Now it's keeping York's muzzle on target while chaos erupts around him. When the shooting stops, 25 German soldiers lie dead. 132 more surrender. York used the M1917 Enfield to achieve the most celebrated American combat action of World War I. Later, photographers would hand him a Springfield for publicity photos. History books would repeat the mistake, but the after-action reports tell the truth. Eddystone M1917, the rifle that made a legend. March 1918. 400 miles north. The German Spring Offensive crashes into Allied lines like a tsunami. 50 divisions, over 1 million German soldiers, the largest offensive operation of the entire war. They punch through British and French positions, threaten Paris itself. American divisions rush forward to plug the gaps. The 42nd Infantry Division, the Rainbow Division, moves into position near Chateau Thierry. Of their 12,000 rifles, fewer than 1,000 are Springfields. The rest? M1917 Enfields. The rifle that was supposed to be temporary now arms America's response to Germany's final gamble. Private Thomas Johnson of the 165th Infantry Regiment describes the first German assault. They came at dawn, hundreds of them out of the fog. We fired so fast the wood handguards started smoking. I went through 40 rounds in what felt like seconds. The rifle never jammed, never failed, never gave me a reason to doubt it. That 6th round in the magazine, I used it more times than I can count when the Springfields around me ran dry. The German offensive stalls, not because of tactics, not because of artillery support, because American soldiers armed with M1917 ENFI. Elds put up a wall of rifle fire that German stormtroopers cannot penetrate. The logistics worked. The $28 rifle arrived in quantities the expensive Springfield never could, and it performed. Every single promise made about the M1917 proves true in the mud and blood of France. Stronger than it needed to be, more reliable than expected, more accurate than required. The substitute rifle is winning America's war, but the production miracle behind it? That story is even more remarkable, because while soldiers fought with M1917s, American factories were performing an industrial achievement that would reshape warfare forever. The scale of what happened back home defied everything anyone thought possible. Springfield Armory, Massachusetts. April 1918. Army engineers conduct a test that will remain classified for decades. They take an M1917 Enfield and a Springfield M1903. Load them with progressively hotter ammunition, increase powder charges beyond standard specifications, then beyond safe specifications, then into territory no combat rifle should ever experience. The goal? Find the breaking point. The Springfield shows pressure signs first. Sticky bolt extraction at pressures 15% above normal. At 20% over specification, primer flow becomes visible. The test stops before catastrophic failure, but the message is clear. The Springfield has limits. The M1917 keeps functioning. 20% over pressure. Bolts still cycle smoothly. 25%. Still working. 30% above designed pressure. The test M1917 finally shows a sticky bolt, but the receiver remains intact. No cracks, no deformation. The engineers realize something remarkable. The M1917 Enfield was designed for the British 303 cartridge, a rimmed round that generates different pressure curves than the American 30-6. When modified for the rimless American cartridge, the AC, Tion became overbuilt, not by accident, by the mathematics of good engineering applied to different ammunition. That extra steel, that stronger locking system, that robust receiver everyone complained added weight, it created one of the strongest bolt-action rifles America ever fielded. Field reports from France confirm what laboratory testing revealed. Soldiers write home about using their rifles as clubs when ammunition runs out. The M1917 survives hand-to-hand combat. Stocks crack occasionally, but receivers stay solid. One sergeant reports using his M1917 to pry open a German bunker door. The barrel bent slightly, but the action still functioned. He fired 30 more rounds through that bent barrel before armory personnel finally noticed and replaced it. Another account describes using 3 M1917s as improvised ladder rungs during a trench raid. All 3 rifles held a soldier's full weight. All 3 continued functioning afterward. The $28 rifle refuses to break. Meanwhile, production reaches levels that stagger imagination. January 1918, 150,000 rifles produced. February, 175,000. March, 200,000. By July, monthly production exceeds 250,000 M1917 Enfields. America outputs more rifles in a single month than most nations produce in an entire year. Eddystone Factory in Pennsylvania becomes the epicenter. 1,000 workers per shift, 3 shifts per day. The assembly line never stops. 1 rifle completed every 90 seconds means 960 rifles per day. Times 30 days equals 28,800 rifles per month from a single factory. Multiply that by 3 facilities and the numbers become overwhelming. But quantity means nothing without quality. This is where American industrial precision creates something unprecedented. Monthly meetings between Winchester, Remington, and Eddystone engineers ensure specifications match exactly across all 3 manufacturers. A Bolt PR. Produced in Connecticut, must function flawlessly in a receiver made in Pennsylvania. A barrel from New York must thread perfectly into an action from any facility. Interchangeable parts on a scale never before achieved in firearms manufacturing. Field armorers in France test this constantly. Pull a bolt from a Winchester rifle. Drop it into an Eddystone receiver. Headspace remains within specification. Timing perfect. Function flawless. Pull a trigger assembly from Remington. Install it in a Winchester. No fitting required. Works immediately. This isn't luck. This is American manufacturing capability operating at its absolute peak. Statistical quality control. Pioneered by Winchester during M1917 production, samples parts from production lines rather than inspecting every component. This reduces costs while maintaining quality. A rifle that passes inspection in one state will function identically to one from another. The tolerances aren't as tight as the Springfield. They don't need to be. Combat doesn't require perfection. Combat requires reliability. And the M1917 delivers reliability in quantities that win wars. September 26, 1918. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive begins, the largest American military operation in history to that date. 600,000 American soldiers advance along a 20-mile front. In their hands, overwhelmingly M1917 Enfields. Photography from the offensive proves it beyond question. Row after row of doughboys lined up for inspection. The distinctive M1917 with its protected sight ears and longer barrel appears in frame after frame. Occasionally a Springfield shows up, maybe one in every 20 rifles. The official United States service rifle had become a curiosity. The substitute had become the standard. Lieutenant Colonel George Patton, commanding tank battalions in the offensive, specifically requisitions M1917 Enfields for his crews. His reasoning appears in supply documents. Tank crews need weapons that survive vibration, oil contamination, and the brutal environment inside primitive armored vehicles. The Springfield, with its tighter tolerances and more delicate construction, requires careful maintenance. The M1917 shrugs off abuse. When Patton's tanks get disabled by German artillery, and they do constantly, crews bail out and fight as infantry. Their M1917s, coated in hydraulic fluid and carbon deposits, still function perfectly. No cleaning, no maintenance, just point and shoot. The rifle works. The cost efficiency becomes the stuff of military legend. $28 bought not just a rifle, but a complete weapon system that required less maintenance than any other firearm in American service. The stronger action meant fewer depot-level repairs. Parts breakage occurred at half the rate of Springfield rifles. Training time for armorers dropped by 40% because the M1917's simpler construction required less specialized knowledge. When Army accountants finally tallied the true cost per rifle, including maintenance, spare parts, training and logistics support, the M1917 cost 40% less than the Springfield over its projected service life. The actual savings exceeded even the purchase price difference. November 11, 1918, 11 a.m., the armistice takes effect. Across France, American soldiers stop shooting. Many still hold the M1917 Enfields they received in training camp a year earlier. Some rifles show wear. Stock scratched from trench warfare, barrels worn from thousands of rounds, but functioning, still reliable, still ready. Back in America, factories producing 9,000 rifles daily receive shutdown orders. Within hours, assembly lines that ran continuously for 18 months fall silent. Workers who lived in company dormitories for over a year finally go home. Machinery designed to run forever sits idle. The industrial mobilization ends as abruptly as it began. Final production count, 2,193,429 M1917 Enfield rifles. More than any other American military rifle produced before that moment. More than any American rifle would be produced until World War II. The Springfield M1903, with its legendary status and official designation, barely 300,000 manufactured during the same period. 7 M1917s produced for every Springfield, the mathematics of industrial warfare written in serial numbers and shipping manifests. Post-war complications emerge immediately. Millions of American veterans return home expecting to purchase their service rifles through government surplus programs, standard practice after every American conflict. Soldiers buy the weapons they carried, keep them as souvenirs or hunting rifles. But politics intervenes. The Springfield M1903 remains the official United States service rifle despite being the minority weapon during the war. The War Department prioritizes selling Springfields to civilians, while warehouses fill with M1917s. Veterans who fought with Enfields cannot buy Enfields. They can purchase the Springfield they never carried. The disconnect frustrates an entire generation. The rifle that won the war becomes the rifle nobody can own. Instead, M1917s fill warehouse after warehouse. Cosmoline preservation coating applied, serial numbers logged, then storage. Hundreds of thousands of rifles waiting for a purpose that may never come. But the M1917 story isn't over, not even close. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor burns. America enters another world war. History repeats with terrifying precision. The United States needs to arm millions of soldiers immediately. The M1 Garand exists. Semi-automatic, 8-round capacity, everything the military wanted in a modern service rifle. But production cannot meet demand. Sound familiar? Warehouses across America still hold hundreds of thousands of M1917 Enfields. 23 years in storage, preserved under thick cosmoline coating. Serial numbers from 1917 and 1918 stamped into receivers that never saw combat. The decision takes less than a week. Reissue the M1917s. National Guard units receive them first. Home defense forces get them second. Training camps third. By January 1942, soldiers are qualifying with the same rifles their fathers carried in France. Workers scrape off cosmoline that went on in 1919. Apply a thin coat of fresh oil. Replace dried leather slings with new canvas versions. Test fire. Issue. The rifles work perfectly. 23 years of storage made no difference. The overbuilt engineering from 1917 pays dividends in 1942. No parts failures, no receiver cracks, no mysterious malfunctions from decades of inactivity. The M1917 Enfield proves that good design doesn't age. Marine raiders training for Pacific Island assaults practice with M1917s converted to training rifles. The strong action handles proof loads that destroy lesser rifles. Navy crews on merchant vessels crossing the Atlantic receive M1917s for anti-submarine defense. Coast Guard patrols along American coastlines carry Enfields into 1943. The obsolete bolt-action rifle finds new purpose wherever semi-automatic weapons remain scarce. Then comes the connection nobody predicted. Lend-Lease, America's program to supply allied nations with war materials. Britain needs rifles desperately. The German Blitzkrieg consumed equipment faster than factories could replace it. The Home Guard, Britain's last line of defense against potential invasion, desperately needs weapons. America offers 300,000 M1917 Enfields. The rifles travel full circle. British pattern 1914 design, modified by Americans for American ammunition, manufactured in American factories for America. End soldiers in World War I. Now returning to Britain to defend against German invasion in World War II. British Home Guard volunteers in 1940 receive rifles their own government designed 26 years earlier. The irony escapes nobody. British engineers examine the M1917s with professional curiosity. These are our rifles, our design, built better than we built them. The American manufacturing quality exceeds original British production standards, tighter tolerances despite being designed for loose tolerances, better steel despite using American alloys instead of British. The student became the master. Training camps across America in 1942 look remarkably similar to 1917. New recruits learn bolt-action fundamentals on M1917s while M1 Garands remain promises for the future. The 6-round magazine capacity still matters. The aperture sight system still proves faster than traditional designs. The heavy weight still absorbs recoil better than lighter rifles. A new generation discovers what their fathers knew. The M1917 works. Specialist units find creative uses. Army Air Corps gunners train on M1917s before transitioning to aircraft weapons. The rifle teaches trigger control and sight picture fundamentals. Military police units at stateside bases carry M1917s through 1944. Prisoner of war camps use them for guard duty. The substitute rifle serves everywhere the latest technology isn't critical. but gradually M1 Garand production catches up. By 1943, frontline units receive semi-automatic rifles in sufficient quantity. The M1917s flow backward, from combat units to support units, from support units to training units, from training units back to warehouses. By 1945, most M1917s return to storage, the war emergency past, modern rifles available. The bolt-action era officially ended for American forces, except the M1917 story still wasn't finished. One more chapter remained, one that would finally let veterans own the rifles they carried. 1960s. The civilian marksmanship program begins releasing surplus military rifles to qualified American civilians. World War II veterans, now in their 40s and 50s, finally get the opportunity they waited decades for. Purchase the rifles they carried. Own a piece of their service history. The first batches include M1 Garands, Springfield M1903s, and finally M1917 Enfields. Prices start at $35, $7 more than the original manufacturing cost in 1917. Adjusted for inflation, these rifles cost less than they did to produce. Veterans who fought with M1917s in France immediately recognized their old service weapons. Same sight ears, same heavy barrel, same solid feel that made the rifle unforgettable. They purchased them by the thousands. Mail order forms flood the program offices. Finally, after 40 years, the rifle that won World War I becomes available to the men who carried it. But something unexpected happens. Target shooters with no military connection start buying M1917s. Not for nostalgia, not for collecting, for competition. Rifle ranges across America discover what military testing revealed in 1917. M1917 Enfield shoots better than most people can shoot. High-power rifle competitions at Camp Perry. Regional matches from California to Maine. Vintage military rifle leagues. The M1917 consistently outperforms expectations. Shooters achieve groups at 300 yards that rival modern sporting rifles costing 10 times as much. The longer sight radius, distance between front and rear sights, provides mechanical advantage. The heavier barrel reduces harmonic vibrations that affect accuracy. The stronger action maintains consistency shot after shot. The substitute rifle from 1917 competes successfully against precision firearms from the 1960s. Gunsmiths St. Art examining M1917s with professional interest. Custom rifle builders looking for action strong enough to handle Magnum cartridges discover the M1917 receiver. Its overbuilt design from 1917 makes it perfect for modern high-pressure rounds. Wildcatters converting rifles to 300 Winchester Magnum, 338 Winchester Magnum, even the powerful 458 Winchester Magnum prefer M1917 actions. They know it will handle pressures that would crack lesser receivers. Sporting goods stores in the 1970s regularly feature custom hunting rifles built on surplus M1917 actions. The receiver costs $15. A new barrel, stockwork, and professional fitting runs another $300. The result? A Magnum hunting rifle for a fraction of commercial prices with an action stronger than rifles costing thousands. That 1917 engineering, born from British design and American manufacturing necessity, proves timeless. Modern metallurgical analysis reveals why the M1917 remains relevant decades after production ended. The nickel-steel alloy specified for receivers exceeded contemporary standards by significant margins. Testing in the 1970s shows the steel quality matches or exceeds modern firearms manufacturing standards. Heat treatment procedures developed by Winchester during World War I production became industry standards that persisted for 50 years. Methods for hardening receivers, tempering bolts, and stress-relieving barrels originated during M1917 manufacturing. The interrupted thread design of the bolt lugs distributes stress optimally. Engineering students study M1917 bolts as examples of proper locking lug design. The geometry that seemed like simple copying of British patterns actually represents sophisticated understanding of force distribution under pressure. Modern computer analysis confirms what 1917 engineers did by calculation and testing. The bolt design is nearly perfect for its application. M1917 receiver failures from standard pressure ammunition remain extraordinarily rare even today. Collectors document fewer than a dozen catastrophic failures in over 2 million rifles produced. That failure rate of less than 0.0006% represents remarkable engineering achievement. Most failures trace to improper hand loads or ammunition defects, not receiver weakness. The rifle that cost $28 in 1917 established reliability standards modern manufacturers struggle to match. At rifle ranges today, M1917 Enfields appear regularly. Many still wear original finishes from 1918. Factory markings remain crisp after over a century. These aren't safe queens or display pieces. They're working rifles that shooters trust enough to compete with every weekend. Modern shooting competitions tell the real story of the M1917 Enfield better than any historical document. Vintage military rifle matches across America feature competitors using rifles over 100 years old. M1903 Springfields appear frequently. Elegant lines, beautiful craftsmanship. Historical significance obvious to anyone who sees them. Then someone shows up with an M1917 Enfield, heavier, less refined looking, the rifle nobody remembers, until the targets come back, consistently tighter groups, faster follow-up shots. That 6-round capacity still matters in timed competitions where 5 rounds versus 6 creates measurable advantage. The aperture sight system still proves faster for target acquisition than period ladder sights. The substitute rifle still outperforms the official service rifle in measurable, repeatable ways. Collectors and historians spent decades arguing about whether the M1917 truly surpassed the Springfield. Competition results settled the argument. When shooters of equal skill fire both rifles under identical conditions, the M1917 produces better results. Not dramatically better, not revolutionary, just consistently, measurably, repeatably better. The $28 rifle holds its own against weapons that cost thousands in today's market. The statistics reveal what propaganda obscured. Springfield M1903 production during World War I totaled approximately 300,000 rifles. M1917 Enfield production exceeded 2.1 million. Simple division means for every Springfield in France there were 7 M1917s. Photographic evidence from the Western Front confirms it. When you examine pictures of American troops during major offensives, you count M1917s. Lots of them. Springfields appear occasionally. Background details. The rifle in propaganda films versus the rifle actually winning the war. The comparison becomes stark when you examine what each rifle represented. The Springfield embodied everything America wanted to project. Precision craftsmanship, elegant design, made in government arsenals by skilled workers using the finest materials. A rifle worthy of American prestige, the M1917 represented what America actually needed: mass production capability, reliability over refinement, civilian factories outproducing government arsenals by factors of 10. A rifle that worked when nothing else mattered. One rifle got the glory, the other won the war. American industrial capability, unleashed by necessity, achieved something remarkable with the M1917. When traditional solutions failed, when Springfield Armory couldn't meet demand, civilian industry pivoted. Winchester, Remington, and Eddystone didn't just match government production. They exceeded it by margins that redefined what manufacturing meant. 3 civilian factories outproduced every government arsenal combined. They built a rifle stronger than required, more reliable than expected, more accurate than specified, and more numerous than anyone thought possible. For $28 per unit. That price tag masked incredible value. The $28 bought American soldiers a rifle that refused to fail in French mud. It armed Sergeant Alvin York during his legendary action. It gave doughboys that crucial 6th round when German stormtroopers charged their trenches. It proved American manufacturing could meet any challenge, exceed any requirement, deliver any quantity victory demanded. The legacy extends beyond numbers and specifications. The M1917 Enfield proved that substitute doesn't mean inferior, that civilian industry can outperform military arsenals, that overbuilding isn't wasteful when lives depend on reliability, that sometimes the backup plan becomes the main event because the backup plan actually works better. Museums today display Springfield M1903 rifles prominently, polished, spotlit, described as the iconic American rifle of World War I. M1917 Enfields gather dust in storage rooms. Unrestored, uncelebrated, too common to be interesting. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so profound. The rifle that actually won the war gets forgotten while the rifle that barely showed up gets remembered. But veterans knew the truth. The men who carried M1917s through the Argonne, through Belleau Wood, through Chateau Thierry, never questioned which rifle mattered. They trusted the Enfield with their lives. It never let them down. The M1917 Enfield represents something bigger than steel and walnut. It stands as proof that American industrial might, when properly unleashed, can achieve the impossible. 2 million rifles in 18 months. 7 times more production than the official service rifle. Half the cost with double the reliability. The substitute that became the backbone. History tried to forget the M1917. Textbooks focused on the Springfield. Movies showed Springfields. Museums displayed Springfields. But the veterans remembered. The WWII knew which rifle actually armed American forces. They knew which weapon survived the worst combat conditions imaginable. They knew the truth that statistics confirm and battlefield reports prove beyond question. The M1917 won World War I for America, not through superior tactics, not through innovative design, through sheer presence. 3 out of every 4 American soldiers carried an Enfield. When you need to arm 2 million men immediately, the rifle that shows up in quantity matters more than the rifle that looks good in photographs. Today, M1917 Enfields still fire at ranges across America, still compete successfully, still prove that 1917 engineering got something fundamentally right. The rifle that cost $28 over a century ago outperforms modern firearms costing thousands. That's not nostalgia, that's evidence. The M1917 Enfield, the rifle history forgot, the rifle logistics loved, the rifle soldiers trusted, the weapon that proved sometimes the accident of history works better than careful planning, the substitute that surpassed the original, the $28 rifle that outfought every Springfield America ever issued, and that's the story they don't teach in history class.